Anyway, let's talk about this rivalry. Please. Cam will get you teed up on the rivalry. What makes this one different, special, all those things?
You know, it's so close. You know, all these players know each other. They played on the same high school teams or in the same districts against each other. You got Miami Central, Carroll City, Northwestern, you know, St. Thomas Aquinas, Chaminade. Like, you got all these players who played against each other in South Florida and then throughout the rest of the state, because, you know, even teams from, you know, the Jacksonville area will come down for states, or they'll do the intersectional kind of things. You know, well, they'll travel out of their region for a non-conference game or non-district game and things like that. So all these guys know each other, and everybody's seen Miami and Florida State. Y'all know that I'm from Detroit, and the only game that I would see of these teams annually would be Miami versus Florida State, and then Florida versus Florida State, and then maybe one other Miami game. But even when I was growing up in the 80s and 90s, I knew about this rivalry. I knew about these games, and all these kids do too. And I know it's not been on the Miami side. Yeah, it's been, you know, 18 years now since we won a national championship, and 15 since we've been to that kind of level of performance. But yet and still, every year against Florida State is an event. Mm-hmm. And whether, you know, Florida State's winning championships, whether not, you know, it's everybody raises their level of performance. And coaches and players, both current and past, have spoken about this for many years. Miami versus Florida State is a different kind of game. You practice harder, you hit harder. When I was in school at Miami, my dorm was right next to the intramural fields, which is like a stone's throw away from the practice, the Green Tree practice fields for Miami. And for a full week, I mean, starting on Sunday morning, they took all of the interior speakers from the Wellness Center and everywhere around campus, and they lined them around the Green Tree practice fields. And the only thing that they played on cursed, infernal, infinite repeat was that war chant. And I hate it with the burning passion of 1,000 suns. I never will like it. I appreciate the greatness of the band to be able to play it and everything. But yo, I mean, like, everybody, if you're walking to class, you wake up in the morning, because my dorm room faced over that way. So I wasn't even on the other side of the hall. But you hear 8 o'clock in the morning, ding, 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 and I'm just like, God dang it. I have a 9 o'clock test and I'm trying to sleep in, but I got to wake up to this? Nah, man, it's different. It hits you in a different place than all these different things. And that's what it means for me as just an alumni. Look, if you talk to these players, you already know, like, I know these guys. I went to school with these guys. I started in front of a guy. If I'm Joe Yearby, I started at Miami Central in front of a Dalvin Cook, which is true. But then Dalvin Cook, obviously, he elevates levels at Florida State and single-handedly beat Miami tree time, because we had most of those games won, and then 4 got loose and it was over. Like, it's a different kind of beast. And it's the thing that whenever the schedule comes out, even though we knew we were opening with Florida, yeah. Where's that Florida State game? What weekend is that? I got to circle that. I got to note that. I got to put it in my phone calendar right now in May for October, November, whenever, because this game is different.
Was that it, Cam?
We have no idea.
Yeah, I know it was, but I mean, literally 24/7. I mean, just that whole week, you couldn't walk anywhere. I couldn't go to the dining hall on that side of campus because it was blaring like that. Like, golly.
That's what it goes back to. You talk about in the I believe it was the U Part 2 documentary where Mike Rump talks about that, about how Mike Rump and Ed Reed said that was basically played the entire time. FSU puts up the hurricane flags on the practice field starting the Sunday before the game. Yeah, it is, without a doubt, and I'll go out and say it, and even now, it is still the greatest college football game. Period. It's better than USC, Notre Dame, Army, Navy.
That's the only reason why ABC is right there right now.
It's the only reason why there was a chance that 2 teams could have been 3 and 5, and ABC was even considering it being the primetime nationally televised game. I get that they've trust me, we've worked in TV long enough. They've got the montage ready of Lamar Thomas in 92, Marvin Jones in 92. They've got the montages ready to go.
Do me a favor, Jason, sometime. And this is not the time to argue this.
Here we go.
I'm going to throw this out there. Be quiet.
Go ahead.
Go to the college football schedule of any season, all right? At the beginning of the season, way before they've scheduled anything. Do it in like June. Go look at the complete schedule for the entire season. You will see 2 games where they will have the network and the game time listed already. One is Army Navy, played in December. Nobody else is playing. The other one will be Ohio State and Michigan.
Mazel tov to both. Fox got the rights to Ohio State, Michigan. That's great.
Even before Fox,
I'm a native
CBS,
Michigander.
ABC,
That's
been
number
going
one
on
for me
forever.
too.
Noon on a major network every year. It's not even discussed.
Kent State, calm down. Florida State Miami has meant more than a game between an Ohio State team and a Michigan team. That a Michigan team's going to come in there with what, 2 losses, 3 losses? Sorry,
We're not talking about one specific year, Jason.
Fine.
We're talking about a rivalry over time.
Florida State Miami
and I have all respect for this Florida State Miami. Some of the greatest athleticism on a college football field I have witnessed from the late 80s to some degree last year. Between these two teams. So I have great respect for these two schools as football playing institutions that bring the very most elite talent to the field, as good as anybody, year after year after year.
No game in the modern era, and I'm going to say, let's say modern era, saying from 1980 on, so the last 40 seasons.
Is that your definition of the modern era? We go by the Jason Parker definition of the modern era.
Born in 83,
okay.
Yeah, we're going to go with that.
All right. Okay.
So yes, it is it's the best college football game. It is the one that, I'm sorry, in a 31 season period from 1983 to 2013, the teams either played for or won a title 14 of those seasons. Nearly half the time, it was Miami or Florida State playing for the title. Almost always the winner, except for 89 when we beat Miami and they went on to win the national title. It's the most important game for both teams. Like Cam said, he cares more about Florida State than playing Florida. I hate Florida a little bit more. I dislike Miami. I hate Florida. But it is the most important game, especially for someone like me as a Florida State grad living in South Florida. I need Florida State to win so that I can survive for the next year and not have to hear about 3 wins in a row from Miami. I need this from FSU. It's the most important thing. But it's also important because of the fact that Florida State, and Cam touched on a little bit, you go back into the 70s where Howard Schnellenberger in 79, and he started turning Miami around, and Miami started they started winning games, going to bowl games, and then winning their first title in 83. They basically closed off South Florida, which I have said on here before is the greatest area of high school football in the country. And we talked about this in the entire country. There was one school that in the 80s, when Miami was a dynasty era, that came in here and was able to recruit more than just one player, taking 1 or 2 players. And it was Florida State. Bobby Bowden, much in that same mold as the Howard Schnellenberger type, was able to come in and take players from Miami, from Fort Lauderdale, from West Palm Beach, from Belle Glade, and was able to build it up in Tallahassee. So like Cam said, Cam is 100% right. Florida State was able to build off of South Florida. They were able to get the leftovers that Miami wasn't getting. And then when Florida State started to build their dynasty area and Miami started going down, Florida State was able to get the top players from South Florida, getting guys like Dalvin Cook, getting guys like LaMarcus Joyner, from Southwest Miami, and then he goes up to St. Thomas for his senior year. So that's why it is the game that means the most. And even this year, I will say it, the Florida State Miami game, the reason why this is going to be the best game in series history is because of what matters. And Cam touched on it a little bit before he signed on. Florida State still has Boston College and Florida, both on the road after this. Miami still has to go to Duke, still has to play FIU on the road at Marlins Park, and they still have a Louisville team who is much better. Both teams still have games that they can lose on their schedule. They cannot afford another loss if they both want to go to a bowl game. For Florida State, I will say it, if Willie Taggart has another losing season, I don't see him coaching in the 2020 campaign. So that's why I think it's more important.
Wait, Paul.
I'm
sorry.
Hold on.
So if you have a losing season this year,
if they have a losing season this season, and if you've watched any of our shows, I am the biggest Willie Taggart fan. I don't see how you could say if Florida State goes 5-7 this year that Willie Taggart sticks around for the 2020 season. I don't see it. I want it to happen. I want him to stick around. I understand that it's more than just a 2-year thing. I get it, but I think the pressure is starting to get to where it's getting close. I think there's a lot of alumni who may have been willing to give Willie a chance who are starting to go the other way on that one. That's just a fact. And I think Manny's getting the hometown discount this season. If Miami somehow goes 5-7 this season, it's going to be the same things that were said about Willie last year. Oh, he was rebuilding. Oh, it was a borderline dumpster fire, although I don't think Mark Richt left it as bad as Jimbo Fisher left FSU. But then 2020 will come around, and then the pressure will be on Manny at that point. That's why this game is going to be most important because of what is on the line.
Wait, this is to be the best game for the Florida State versus Miami. I know I'm young and I just shaved, so I look even younger. And I'm in college. But I do feel like my dad and my mom told me there were some pretty important at Florida State versus Miami games back in the day where it would even lead to national championships. Hopes of that, where wins were on the line in order to move on to where, that's going to be a national championship.
I was at every wide right. I was at the wide left in 2002. So I've cursed our kickers more than everyone combined here in this chat. This is the other advantage is that those games were also earlier in the schedule. Those games were in the first or second week of October. So if you lost, you still had a chance to come back. There was still probably a game or two left on the schedule that if you won, you could jump up, you could get back in. In the 2000 season, you had it where, Florida State loses to Miami, and Florida State still plays for the national title because of the rest of their schedule.
Which was a screw job anyway, but whatever.
And moving on, continuing, and it was also a backwards pass last year. Moving on, right now, your games left, Florida State would have Boston College, Alabama State, and Florida. And I just repeat Miami's schedule, Louisville, FIU, and Duke. Which games from there can you do anything with at this point? This game means more, and it's going to be the best game. And I think you're going to have guys from both Miami and Florida State who are going to play the best than they've ever played before.